But we begin today in Nova Scotia, where a rural community is trying to come to terms with insurmountable loss, attempting to grieve while apart, all while grappling with the uncertainty that this pandemic brings to all of us. We are learning more about the 18 innocent lives that were lost in this senseless tragedy. The victims include an RCMP officer who put her life on the line to save others, a family of 3, including a teenager with a gift for music, 2 healthcare workers who worked for the Victorian Order of Nurses, and a couple who both worked as correctional officers. There will be no big memorials. There will be no traditional funerals to mourn the lives lost.
I know what I'm about to say is going to be hard for people to hear, especially when we're going through so much pain at this time. And while we want to mourn victims and come together as communities, we need to do that in a way that does not create an environment for COVID-19 to further spread. I know that the RCMP and the victims' families do and will appreciate the outpouring of support that is coming their way, but we cannot have people gather together as part of showing this support.
Makeshift memorials across the province and across the country are growing, and there'll be a virtual vigil that'll be held this Friday to honor the victims. Also, Queen Elizabeth joining the chorus of voices offering condolences to Nova Scotians grieving this tragic shooting. In a statement released on Twitter, the Queen says, quote, "Prince Philip and I have been deeply saddened by the appalling events in Nova Scotia." She goes on to praise the bravery of the RCMP and other police who responded to the mass shooting, and ends by saying, "My thoughts and prayers are with the people of Nova Scotia and all Canadians at this tragic time." You are looking at the flag at half staff outside Parliament right now to honor the victims of the Nova Scotia shooting. Again, this is the worst mass shooting in modern Canadian history.
This morning, I want to again extend my most sincere condolences to the families and friends of the victims of the terrible Nova Scotia attacks. Since yesterday, I've had the chance to speak with Constable Chad Morrison, the RCMP officer who was wounded, as well as Constable Heidi Stevenson's family. On behalf of all Canadians, I thanked them for their service and their sacrifice. Yesterday, when I offered my sympathies to the RCMP officers who support me, I was amazed to see how many of them knew Heidi and had incredibly fond memories of her. They'd worked with her on the musical ride. They remembered her as an extraordinary person. And it really goes to show just how tightly knit not just the RCMP is as a force, but how close we are as a country. Yesterday afternoon, I visited the Canadian Police and Peace Officers Memorial on Parliament Hill to pay tribute to Constable Stevenson and to recognize the contributions of all law enforcement members to keep us safe. I also spoke to a number of colleagues from Nova Scotia, both past and present, and sought Senator Stan Kutcher's advice, both as a Nova Scotian and as a mental health expert. These calls reinforced what we all know about Nova Scotia, that it's a special place where people stick together and look out for each other. This week, we are all Nova Scotian. The families of the victims can count on the unwavering support not only of their neighbours, but of every single Canadian.